Netflix has a brand new anime series. Let's talk about it. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. 1, sorry about the voice. Been a bit sick. 2, today we are talking Ghost in the Shell, a brand new adaptation, one that a lot of people are excited for, but also hesitant about. Today I'm going to give you guys a non-spoiler review telling you if it's worth your time or not. I need you in the comments section. What did you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you like these Netflix reviews? Okay. So hired as a mercenary unit, the former members of Japan's elite Section 9 are faced with the sudden appearance of Post-Human, a being with tremendous intelligence and physical capabilities. So Ghost in the Shell, it is one of the most influential sci-fi animes of all time. What it has done for us, especially recently, we look at movies like Ex Machina and television shows like Westworld, and it's not necessarily that they got everything that they have from Ghost in the Shell, but thematically, looking at how some of these modern television shows and movies play out, we can always draw comparisons back to Ghost in the Shell. We had the remake, the live-action one with Scarlett Johansson, and, you know, it was a bit of this, a bit of that. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I thought it was, forgettable at most, and we've had plenty of series to follow up the film. Now, when this trailer first came out and people saw the animation, you look at the 3D models, you look at the way that they move, and a lot of comparisons will be made to other modern Netflix anime series such as Ultraman. You also have the Dragon Prince, but for something like a Dragon Prince, I feel like it works much better with that format, and I honestly believe the animation in that show is a bit better than what we saw here, but I was still going to give this show a chance because if narratively it can overcome the fact that it's not going to please everyone visually, then the show, I believe, is worth a watch. So where does Standalone Complex fit in this equation? Well, in my personal opinion, it is not the revival that I think a lot of fans will want. It still gets a lot of things right. Certain characters aren't at the forefront that maybe you would expect, and I think that's going to stray some longtime fans away. And at the end of the day, I still don't think the animation was quite up to par, especially when you're making comparisons, because that's what we do as fans in general, but also as anime fans, we're always going to compare to the original. Doesn't matter what it is. And the original Ghost in the Shell animation, then you have 2.0, and so many different interpretations, but one thing they consistently got right was the fact that it looked great. Visually, it was spectacular. And Standalone Complex 2045, it's just, in my opinion, it's something that doesn't live up to those expectations. And it's not that it was consistently bad throughout the entire series. There were times when the colors would stand out when we go to different locations, and you can see what they were going for. And you understand that the producers involved, I believe one of the producers is the person behind Ultraman on Netflix, and he wanted to take this in that route, in that direction. And I understand why some would want to do that, but for longtime fans, to try to adjust ourselves to something like this is going to be a struggle. And to those making comparisons to, PlayStation 2 type graphics, and you don't really see the expressions in the characters' faces, and especially with characters that are this layered, and even in the show, we got some development that maybe I wasn't expecting, and it worked out really well in the long run. You need a bit more in terms of the visuals, so it's going to divide people. I'm sure some people are watching me right now going, Austin, you don't know what you're talking about. It looks great. That's fine. I completely understand where you're coming from, but they didn't quite do it for me. But I do like how this series in particular is not just a retread of things that we've seen before. It looks at specifically the danger of a push that is made by a group of individuals about the development of artificial intelligence that has been viewed as post-human, a post-human threat on society. Now, within the show, the general public, they don't really know what's going on within AI advancements, but that threat is slowly making itself known to the character of Major. And one thing I was questioning as we were going is, well, this show isn't necessarily focusing on Major's point of view. We obviously have a lot of characters that we have to deal with, and normally we're stuck with her, and I don't say that as a bad thing. I love being stuck with her, but normally we're seeing a lot of things from her point of view, and we're with her for a lot of the time. And we're with her. I mean, in the first episode, we start out with our group that we're rooting for. And I want to say this, if you are coming at this for the first time and you've never seen Ghost in the Shell prior, then you may be a bit confused because, in my opinion, you have to have that knowledge of Ghost in the Shell to not enjoy this series, but to get more out of it than a casual fan. And I'm not saying you have to be the biggest Ghost in the Shell buff, but there has to be a bit of knowledge going in for you to get the enjoyment that I think is expected. So you have what used to be Section 9. They are now mercenaries, and they're kind of going back and forth, looking for gigs, taking advantage of their skills. And then all of a sudden, they become aware that something called the Global Simultaneous Default, and what they call the post-humans, like I said, is becoming more and more of a threat. So they get back together with Section 9, and their goal is to prevent this disaster from spreading across the entire world. We have the return of all of our classic characters. We even have similar names in the director's chair, one in particular who is familiar with Ghost in the Shell and how it works. So I trust these people involved. I was okay with the fact that we had a couple of new recruits joining the team, and they almost served as a way for the audience to understand what was going on, so I thought that was cool. And the best part about the show is when they're working together as a team, when all of their individual skills come together to take down that particular enemy, and that was really fun. And there are a lot of really entertaining action scenes. We start out in the first episode, we're off and running. We continue that momentum. Now, every now and then the story would slow down a tad bit. You would get to focus on the thoughts of an individual character, and I thought was cool. And you get a look at all of these different technologies, the way that the world works. I mean, we understand how this world works, but you can always explore that a tad bit deeper, and I like that. I love seeing that from our characters. And I think the team-centric scenes are the biggest successes of this show, but because of that, like I said, some of the characters, Major included, kind of get lost in the shuffle, and we don't get to explore them as intimately and as deeply as we have in the past. And while it was very clear what the mission was and what the overall arc of the season was going to be, I could have used a bit more from specific characters instead of the specific storytelling method that they use. Honestly, I just needed a distraction from the visuals that were a tad bit distracting. And that's not going to be the case for some. I think some are going to watch this and not mind that whatsoever and enjoy the story. And I did find a lot of elements to like within the story, especially as a fan of the original. Getting some nods and Easter eggs in that department was really cool. And it's a fun and entertaining story that will get past the walls that are set up for a lot of people that I think a lot of people are going to face. But hey, here's the way I can look at it from a positive perspective, is in a series that's full of AIs and synthetic humans and individuals that kind of fit in the uncanny valley that we're dealing with, that's where you look at it and say, well, it honestly almost makes sense that some of these don't look as human or as realistic as we've seen in the past. A lot of exciting chase scenes, some really incredible heist scenes, and some elements of the show that made it fly by. I mean, every episode is 20 minutes. You only have 12 episodes. A couple of times I'm questioning the nature of the episode, but there's so much action in there. I think it's going to hold your attention until the end. It's a very bingeable show, but because of the art style and because it flies through a couple of things, it almost lacks the elegance that we love from the original and the simplicity that makes that stand out far beyond what this show brings us. Now, once again, if you're a newcomer, you're not going to care. You're going to have fun. You're going to be entertained. But if you hold what we know and love about Ghost in the Shell close to your heart, then I think it's going to rub some people the wrong way. So at the end of the day, here's what I'm going to say. There are thoroughly entertaining sections of this show. Some of the characters really stand out. Some of the newcomers stand out. The set pieces are grand, and if you can get past the CGI nature of what the show looks like, those that can get past the character models will appreciate the epic nature of the visuals. So a lot of things to like. I do want it to, at the end of the day, live up to the Ghost in the Shell name. I don't know if it's going to do that yet. I am willing to hold out and see where this goes. If the story can compensate my negatives, and if I find where this leads to as interesting as I want it to be, then that's when I think this will all be worth it at the end of the day. So it is hard to score this because I have so many negatives, but I still found entertainment and some things that really shone through and shocked me that I was having so much fun with. Right now, I'm going to go a 6 out of 10, a 60%, just to keep it to where I can still recommend this show to people who can hopefully look past some of these negatives that even I have and get some enjoyment out of it. But I do think it is going to surprise many that saw that trailer and thought, yeah, it just doesn't look all that great. And I agree with you, but I found some fun within the show. So what did you guys think about this new Ghost in the Shell show? I feel like it's going to divide people. I feel like this review is going to divide people. Do you hate me yet? Anyway, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you supporting this channel, leaving that thumbs up. It really does help me out. And it tells me you want more of these Netflix reviews every weekend, bringing Netflix reviews. And tomorrow, we have a lot that's dropping. Thank you guys again. I'll see you soon.